Go ahead, Stephen.
Okay, well, we want to welcome everyone to our webinar on topics at the nexus of climate change, fisheries, and blue foods. So this is a monthly webinar series that's sponsored by 4 programs that are part of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. And we have some great speakers here today. So our first speaker is going to be Anna Sanders from Global Fishing Watch. We have a second speaker that we believe will be here, but it's possible that they may not be able to make it, in which case we have more time. Oh, sorry, Corinna is here. Okay, so our
I'm
second
here.
speaker, yes, awesome, thank you. Our second speaker is Dr. Corinna Schramm from the Helmholtz Center at the University of Hamburg in Germany, and also representing the SustainMare project, which is also endorsed by the Ocean Decade. So before we start, I just want to introduce the webinar conveners. So I'm Stephen Bograd, and I am co-chair of the Ocean Decade program called SmartNet. So SmartNet is sponsored by ICES and Pisces, which are 2 leading intergovernmental marine science organizations. And our goal is to leverage the infrastructure and partnerships and long-term collaborations that we've always had between ICES and Pisces to build a global network that can share knowledge and capacity around the themes of climate impacts and the resilience and sustainability of marine ecosystems. So I'll turn it over briefly to our other co-conveners who could introduce themselves and their programs. So we'll go to Claire.
Great, thank you, Stephen. My name is Claire Interline, and I'm the program manager for the Fish Score program, which stands for Fisheries Strategies for Changing Oceans and Resilient Ecosystems by 2030. And Fish Score is facilitating an international network of partners to develop information, tools, and resources for supporting climate resilience in fisheries and fishing communities, as well as to provide a forum for the exchange of experiences, research, and to develop new collaborations. And we're excited to be co-convening this webinar series. And I'll turn it over to Laura Anderson from Blue Foods Futures now.
Claire, hi everyone, great to see you. My name is Laura Anderson. I'm an engagement project manager with the Stanford Center for Ocean Solutions, and I support the Blue Food Futures program, which focuses on integrating blue foods into global policy discussions and building a global network to further blue food research, policy, and sustainability solutions. So it's led in partnership with a number of different organizations, both academic, NGO, and government, and we're really grateful to be one of the co-conveners of the webinar series.
Excellent. And then I think I'll go ahead and speak for Supreme. 2 of our um, organizers of the Supreme program, Hannah LaChance and Grace Roscar, I think have other engagements today. But Supreme also is an Ocean Decade endorsed program. It's sponsored by NOAA, and it also aims to build a global network with the aim of building the modeling infrastructure and observational infrastructure to get climate information into ecosystem-based fisheries management. So that's our primary goal. Okay, so I think we will now go ahead and get started with our presentations. So what we'll do is we'll have 2 presentations, each about 20 minutes with a couple of minutes for questions afterwards. And then hopefully we'll have a few minutes right at the end for additional questions or discussion for the whole group. So our first presentation is by Anna Sanders from Global Fishing Watch.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Can you see my screen? Just confirming everything.
Yes.
Looks good.
Looks
Okay,
good,
excellent.
yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Sanders. I'm from Global Fishing Watch. I've been with Global Fishing Watch for the last 3.5 years. Really excited to talk about our project, Global Fishing Watch Marine Manager. The portal, if you want to take a look at it, you can scan the QR code and it will take you to the portal website and you can sign up for a free online account. So who is Global Fishing Watch? We are an international NGO and we use satellite technology to help build and understand a better picture of human activity at sea. We try to do this through free and open data tools, and we create these in order to support our work on greater transparency, research, and sustainable use of our oceans. We're partnering with countries all over the world, and our staff is continuing to grow. We have over 75 staff in over 20 countries. We have users from over 200 countries, and we have over 3,000 research paper citations based on the research that has been published to date. And Stephen, your group at the the Southwest Fisheries Science Center, Heather Welch was, one of our key contributors on several of the papers that we've recently published. So what is the problem, and why are we trying to, really look at the management issue of our oceans? Ecosystem-based management tools are often hampered by inadequate data. They're not interoperable. They fail to get the data from those people who need the data to make the decisions. And so what we're looking to try to do is harness that to provide, more interactive data that can be combined to help inform designation, management, and monitoring of MPAs and OECMs. Is founded by Dona Bertarelli and was launched in 2021 after we conducted several pilot site engagements. So we have engaged with this partnerships and sites listed in the slide here. But what was really critical in our learnings is really looking at how we can co-develop our technology with marine protected area managers, scientists, and NGOs to sort of help develop the portal in a way that can really be used and harnessed for management. We wanted to learn about their use cases and how the data can be used to help inform and answer those questions that were most vital to their core goals. So whether it was marine spatial planning or implementation of an MPA management plan, we really wanted to see how we could use the data to help support these different sites. Right now, we're working with Dona Bertarelli, Pew Bertarelli Ocean Legacy, and the Blue Prosperity Coalition to deliver over 22 sites in the coming years. We have key collaborators across these sites, including NGOs and scientific researchers, such as Mi'gramar, a consortium of scientists working in the Eastern Tropical Pacific, BirdLife International, NOAA, and the Sargonum. We have other NGOs that have been trained to support other engagements that they have, including WildAid, WWF, ASEAN Biodiversity Center, Blue Ventures, Maravia, and Marine Conservation Society. So just to kind of illustrate some of these use cases that we learned from some of the most remote locations in the world, it takes 2 weeks on a boat to get to Tristan da Cunha in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We worked with the Chief Islander, the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, UK Marine Management Organization, Pew Bertarelli Ocean Legacy to identify some of the use cases that are listed here. This was really a very interesting collaboration. We had specifically looked to identify vessels that were not using night setting bycatch mitigation measures in migratory areas where the Tristan albatross is present and transiting through. This was able to help inform some of our work with the regional fishery management organizations in the Atlantic. Our partners also in Guyana were able to understand the increase in vessel and seismic and offshore oil extraction activity in their EEZ. So there's different use cases that we're trying to look at how the data can be used to help support these different use cases and ultimately look to see how we can automate them and make them available to the world. So from pilot sites to global access, you can actually create your own workspace today. That link that I sent earlier, and I'll share it again at the end. By easily searching for a geographic location or a marine protected area, you can easily create a private or shareable workspace. And we're looking at how we can do that. So this is an example of how to create one. So you just easily type in your area that you're looking to create. It'll show that specific region, and then you can actually share and save that. So here you're able to allow others to see the workspace. So if you share that link, then you can share it with your collaborators. So what are some of the other key functionality of the portal? Anyone can create or share a workspace. Historical and near real-time data is available. So that's up to 72 hours delayed. And it has a massive archive that you can go back and look at the data and make those comparisons. We've included advanced analytics and support a range of different data sources, really looking at how we can visualize and how we can provide the measurement of data for those specific days and times. And then uploading and downloading the different data sets. We've just recently provided new options for both uploading and downloading data sets. So what are some of the different data layers that we've included? So prior to Marine Manager being launched, we actually only had fishing and fishing related vessels. Now we are providing information on tourism vessels, dark vessels, so those that are detected by other remote sensing technologies such as synthetic aperture radar, to be able to identify vessels that are not transmitting on their GPS systems. We're also providing information on oceanographic and oceanographic data. So we've worked to include over 12 new different data sets, specifically to allow sort of that curated view with those different sites and biological data. And we've included the ability to upload things like telemetry tracks that might be of interest to this group. So we have gone from global, local, years to hours, fleet to vessel. So we want to provide both sort of the summary view of activity, but allow you to drill down into that specific vessel level information, which might be relevant to enforcement officers and other individuals who might be carrying out an MPA management plan. We've provided the option of filtering by flag, gear, by vessel group, so you can see the different analyses of different fishing activities. So like I said, most recently, we have included 12 new dynamic environmental data sets. These specific, can you see my video? Sorry.
Yes, it looks good.
Okay,
Yes.
great. We've worked to integrate Google Earth engine to provide that visualization of those environmental layers. And so feel free to go into the system. If you see other data sets that you would like to be included that would be relevant to you, you can actually request that. We're looking to get more feedback from our users to be able to help support some of their different use cases. So feel free to send our team a message to get more data sets included. With that Google Earth integration, it allows us to quickly, rapidly update and add new data sets. So I'm going to sort of mention that we also have the ability to filter those environmental data sets. So if you are Heather Welch at the Southwest Fisheries Science Center, you're interested in looking at some of the habitat suitability. So you may have optimal sea surface temperature or chlorophyll, and you're looking to specifically identify what those ranges are for, say, different shark populations or highly migratory species. This allows you to filter those environmental layers and identify that. And you can actually see that time series be animated as well. So there's different ways to play with the data. And again, we got this feedback from Heather Welch, and it was one of the really exciting features that we've added to the portal. Here's an example of uploading animal telemetry data. You can upload both points, polygons, or tracks. We've provided different data set formats to be able to add within the portal. This is an example of uploading line-based data. This is the Seychelles Sooty Terns. If you select the timestamp, if there's a timestamp associated with the data, then you can select and show the line tracks. And then you can also color each of those lines within the data set. This allows individuals who are trying to identify that overlapping fishing interactions and be able to see that dynamic time bar with the data. So this is just showing how you can change the time bar, and then you can play that animation over time. If you hover above the time bar, you can actually see specifically where that track is over time. So one of the other use cases that we have been working on is looking at how we can identify fishing displacement. So where are vessels who are used to fishing within a particular area, and where are they fishing now after an MPA has been created? So in this case, we were able to download the specific area within Reviejero MPA. We extracted that fishing activity data, uploaded that to the groups feature, which was then allows us to visualize the time series of fishing activity displaced by the creation of the MPA. So now it reflects all of the activity that was previously inside the MPA and where those fishing vessels are now. Some of the other analytics that we have, I definitely recommend going in and playing with some of these, is being able to identify the evolution of both the human activity over time. So where is the fishing activity, or where is the tourism vessel activity? We have been able to slice and dice the data in different ways, where you're able to see by flag and by gear type, as well as be able to download those listed vessels in those interactions. You can also do this by the vessel detections, either night lights or veers, and also by the environmental data sets. This is an example of being able to show the analysis for before and after an MPA was established. This is an example of the Kiribati MPA that was created. And then we have the download functionality here. So you're able to download both the active vessels, gridded data, and environmental data into different formats that can be used and digested into what other geospatial platform is available. So feedback is essential to this process. Like I said, we've piloted with different users. We're working in the CMAR region to best understand and implement the technology, but we want to understand from everyone what those needs are. This really helps us be able to ground truth, the new functionality that we're adding to both our map, our data products, and we want to make them as accessible and open as possible. We also have the ability to access our data through the GFWR package or APIs. So if you want to use your own platform or your own processing, you're able to do so through other means. So please, again, provide us feedback. It's helpful to our continuous improvement. We're also collaborating with other researchers. So this is an example. University of British Columbia has worked to create global biodiversity and species rarity data layers. We'll be coming out with these later this year. We're looking at how we can help support some additional use cases where people want to see vessel positions and speed. So we're going to be providing both the ability to see short time ranges and high zoom levels. And we know that our visualizations are key to a lot of advocacy work. And so we're going to be helping support both low bandwidth users with some of faster visualization and rendering technologies. So look forward to releasing that later this year. and seeing some of those, higher fidelity images that are really powerful for advocacy work. All right, and I will stop there for questions.
Thank you very much, Anna. That was wonderful. We can take questions for a few minutes before our second speaker. Folks are still digesting the information. Vivienne, please.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much for the important information. I would like to know if you are able to distinguish between different types of fishing activities, for example, small-scale fishers and others that are happening in the areas. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. So the data models that we have for AIS are based on those vessels that have their monitoring systems on board. We are able to distinguish the different types of activity for those. Typically, those vessels that have a transponder on board are more of the industrial and mid-size vessels. We have actually just recently published a paper in Nature which looks at how we can identify vessels that are operating sort of in the nearshore area. So more of the artisanal vessels. We're getting to sort of the smaller range vessels there, but it's not quite a perfect picture. So we're actually going to be working to look at how we can take optical imagery and be able to see some of those much smaller vessels in higher fidelity. We're going to be piloting this technology and plan with several of our partner countries to be able to see, what that resolution is that we can get. So that the short answer is not yet, but soon. And so we really hope to make that available to the world once those are available.
Thank you very much.
And we do have a question in the chat as well from Leah. She says, incredible to see. What global models are you using for the environmental data?
Yes, so if you go to the Global Fishing Watch layer library, you'll be able to see which specific models those are coming from. So I think we've got HICOM data, we have Copernicus data. Those are all linked within and the sources are available for each of those different data layers. So happy for you to recommend any other environmental data models that are recommended.
Great. Okay, any other questions for Anna right now? Blair, please.
Hi, Anna. I'm part of an international program under the Global Ocean Observing System called Argo, where we collect and return oceanographic information in real time. And a lot of these models that you're using in the Global Fishing Watch assimilate that data into those models. But I'm curious as to whether those models are sort of good for looking at things in the past, but I'm interested whether in Global Fishing Watch you're interested in sort of real-time data to do analysis. Is that something that's of interest? And could we talk about discussing about getting access to real-time ocean information? Would that help in terms of how people use the system?
Yes, Blair. That sounds like a fantastic opportunity. Global Fishing Watch has had a 72-hour delay, but we get asked probably every day, when are you going real time? So this is, we're looking at how we can help benefit those other specific use cases that have the need for that real time information. And I would be happy to discuss further how we can potentially collaborate with your data source.
That'd be great. Maybe we could talk offline or something after.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to our second presentation, and then we should have a few minutes at the end for questions for both speakers or any discussion that people might have. So our next speaker is Dr. Corinna Schramm from Germany, who will talk about the SustainMare project. I hope I pronounced it right.
Yes, that's great. I'll just to look here for the right screen. Let me see. Yes, it's that one. Yep. See. Okay. So I hope you see now the presentation. Stephen?
Yes,
You do
we do see it.
Wonderful. So
we-
I would like to introduce you today into a German program. The title is Protection and Sustainable Use of Marine Spaces. And we're actually planning for phase 2 now. We are in phase 1, and the program is named SustainMare. And you see the link here to the website. Feel free to screen while I'm talking a little bit on products and what we in detail do, because I will only manage to give you an overview of. I'm kind of wondering, puzzled what we have here about the program. And well, this is confusing. So the program is
Corinna,
sorry.
Sorry, could you close the we see the little images of people on the side there.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you can. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Does it help?
Yes, got it.
Okay.
Thanks. That's great.
So the backdrop is actually the triple planetary crisis we are seeing in the ocean. So what? Yeah. The climate change, biodiversity situation, and pollution and human use in the ocean. And of course, this is, as you all probably know, a lot of regulations are among these different crises, but usually there is not so much interaction between the regulations, at least in the EU and Germany. There's a lot of separated policies which look into protections of the sea, and then on the other hand we have the climate strategies, and which provides or give some views on how we overcome climate change, by climate mitigation, by adaptation, and we have also strategies to protect the nature then, and strategies to manage fisheries. And the idea here was to bring this complex well, let's say political framework and a complex from the research side together in one program, and to combine the research of many disciplines into with a transdisciplinary networking of users and stakeholders in the area, and to bring up to study then actually how we could best do policy planning governance in the area. And you see here, we're talking about in national waters where we implement strategies here. The German exclusive economic zone, this is a small marine area, so many other nations have much larger regions to manage here, and as a consequence of this small area, it is totally crowded. You see on the right-hand side in these two different areas in the North and the Baltic Sea. Here is the North Sea and here the Baltic Sea. You see that every little space is covered, and there's no empty space in the marine areas of Germany. And of course, there's also a lot of conflicts of interests in, and a lot of challenges in terms of the management, which relate to the subjects I have mentioned. The SustainMare program is actually a combination of 7 projects which deal with different topics in this field and come together to exchange and collaboratively find solutions to manage these areas. And 2 of the projects are dealing, the blue ones here, the MGF Nordsee, which is a German word, and it relates to bottom contacting fisheries, and in particular exclusion of this benthic fisheries in a marine protected area. It gathers data, both projects gather data in the area and follow the implementation of management measures to exclude these fisheries. What are actually the consequences? How successful are these measures? And the second set of projects, the green ones here, Create Space Party and ICEAL, they work on the reduction of anthropogenic pressures on biodiversity and ecosystems. And that means, for example, also to gather databases to really assess biodiversity, to work with stakeholders in transdisciplinary networks to reduce anthropogenic pressures on the biodiversity and ecosystems, and also to work with fishermen on the future of their on the future of fisheries in coastal areas. And then we have one project which is working in the field of pollution. Here, this is CONMA, with a very special type of pollution, namely with munition legacy. There's a lot of munition dumped in the German waters after the World War in particular, but also afterwards. And it's very, very difficult to know where these munition is actually sitting and how we can remove it. And this is a very concrete problem in terms of pollution the project is dealing with. And then the final project is the project Coastal Futures. That is the project which looks into the future of the marine areas in the German marine areas, but also has a little bit wider view, because the marine areas, of course, are not disconnected by boundaries, but are part of the wider systems of North and Baltic Sea, and develops models to look into the future, to perform future scenarios of, in particular, climate change, but also different use patterns, in particular fisheries and energy production, which can be used for marine management to really assess consequences and impacts and find, develop and test in this framework mitigation measures. So in total, that's about 7 projects, 28 German research institutions, very interdisciplinary, 40 research group, and about 280 scientists. And of course, more people are involved through the transdisciplinary research approach. So there's a huge, extensive involvement of decision makers and stakeholders. Well, where do we see us? Of course, we see that is a network for marine science as a catalyst for action, in particular addressing the sustainable development goals, which are not only about protection, but also are a lot of more goals. So we actually subscribe to these goals and try to envision an architecture for stronger environmental governance. Let me give you a brief background on what kind of strategies we have implemented here. First, on policy of environmental status and biodiversity. We have, of course, in EU, the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, which in regular cycles assess the status of the marine environment and also suggest implementation of measures to improve the status. We are now in cycle 3 here with the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, and starting in 24. And we have the EU Biodiversity Strategy, where the member states designate to 30% marine protected areas, and 10% of these areas have to be strictly protected by 2030. And then in red, you see there are a number of responsible authorities in Germany to implement these EU strategies. We have recent developments in response to these strategies. We have, for example, the exclusion of bottom trawling fisheries in some of the areas, in marine protected areas in the Silt Outer Reef, which have been in place at beginning of 23. So we are actually able to see and assess the consequences of these exclusion on the system and gather the data on that. We have the removal of munition ongoing. There's a large German program actually introduced to do so by the federal government in 23, which is actually a very broad project, also developing some technology to really do the removal. And then we have establishment of a committee on future of Baltic fisheries to really look into the challenges and problems which arise from the different pressure, not only on the ecosystem, but also on the fisheries. And among those, of course, among whatever happens there, climate change is a major driver, which impacts, which shows impacts on the ecosystem, but also through adaptation and mitigation on the use patterns of the ecosystem. And one example you do see here on the map, and where you see that the North Sea is actually very densely, or one of the hotspots in offshore energy production. And because in facing climate change and in bringing up strategies to mitigate climate change, the North Sea states have agreed upon to establish the North Sea as Europe's green power plant. And you see in color these areas where which are considered for implement these strategies to construct offshore energy here. And you see in different colors some projects which are already under commissioned or already running, but most of these plans are still plans and to be implemented in increase the number of installed capacity in the North Sea from 30 gigawatts today to 180 gigawatt until 2030, and more than 300 gigawatt until 2050. And of course, also hydrogen production offshore is planned in the area. And the same is going on in the Baltic Sea at lower numbers. The area is a little bit smaller, less wind also, but the increase is even larger. And we have then in Germany a number of authorities involved into climate change adaptation risks, which are named here. I don't go through all that. You don't know the details, but I think you can see there are a number of authorities, a number of governance processes involved here. And also with the energy development, there are a number of authorities involved here, which have to look into the planning or support the planning procedures, integrate expansion of grid connections, simplified environmental impact assessments here, and to support these developments. So what is the idea now with the program? We want to provide research underpinning marine management towards sustainability. The aim is to identify knowledge gaps, collect data, and perform analyses, develop new monitoring methods and predictive models to really come to a more efficient management and enhance dialogue and system approaches. In the beginning, we targeted the networking and also underpinned the Marine Strategy Framework Directive Cycle 2, which was completed in our first phase. And now in the second phase, we are facing the third cycle and also bring together the different aspects of ecological, economic, and societal impacts to implement protection measures or develop protection measures and socially and policy reflected options for action. What are the big central questions for our research here? Of course, this is the major pressures, current major pressures in the area, which is on the one hand the climate change at the center of everything, and then offshore wind energy, fisheries, and then also the nature conservation. And as you see here, all these interact with each other, and there are a number of policy drivers, regulations in place, which I do not go through in detail, but you see how they actually interact and influence each other. I'd like to focus on the major topics, namely climate change and impacts. We are going to provide or scenarios underway, regional scenarios for climate change, which start from a global model, regionalized, and then look into the resources, the ecosystems in the area, and provide the data to the users, and look also into consequences of sea level rise and protection measures against it, and also the impacts in nature conservation area. We do that in a context here of this German base climate and water to provide data to the users. The second, of course, is the energy transition. This is a huge development we foresee, and we particularly focus on operation phase of and to assess the impacts, because there are large uncertainties on how these huge transformation of a nature reserve, used nature reserve, of course, but into a green power plant, how that impacts the hydrodynamics and the ecosystems in the area. And in our program, this is the major goal here, to look into the future, how the different installation states actually influence the environment. And then, of course, we also look into the future of fisheries. We have these pressures from political, economic developments, but also from climate-related changes in stock losses. And then, of course, the competition for marine space is a huge pressure also on fisheries. And we develop also together with fishermen scenarios on how these risks can be mitigated. And finally, we look into the marine protected areas, to follow what really happens after protection measures have been implemented, and also to assess the consequences and the value for the ecosystem of these protection measures. Well, how do we interact with all this networking? Then, of course, you see that Germany is a complicated country. You have the federal states here and also the national government, and all these have to interact somehow, and have implemented and developed, of course, collaborative structures. We are working with these collaborative structure and with the different working groups in these collaborative structures, but also work with international organizations to foster sustainable development of the seas here. And hope that we can provide also to a wider community the more data and methods to look into future changes and how to manage these. And everybody is welcome to look into our website. I think there's a lot to find about the products here, but also about the specific projects which I have named. And I hope I could engage you a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Corinna. That was excellent. So we have plenty of time for questions for Corinna. Don't see anything yet. I guess I'll ask one question, Corinna.
Please.
Yeah, so it's very impressive that your project has such strong relationships with stakeholders and policymakers. And, in my experience, it's always been one of the hardest things to do is to translate science into actually effective use by management or policymakers. And it looks like you have some infrastructure to help that happen. But how do you set that up? Do you have advice from your project on how best to coordinate that kind of interaction?
Yeah, I think we didn't start from zero. So the structure on the management side was there. This management of the Marine Strategy Framework Directive is more than a decade long old. So management has been in place. And of course, fisheries management in the EU is also an old story. People are in place, the structures are in place, but also they were a little bit disjunct from the scientific community as a whole. And but some researchers always engage in working groups, and of course the management structures, people see that they lack knowledge in following or implement these goals. So they come from time to time to different researchers, ask for advice. And I think while doing these entire project, we have made that more visible also to these researchers who are involved, because we all have been contacted from time to time by the one or other people from administrations. But it's difficult also for the research to see where you feed in with your results. I mean, you publish paper, you maybe answer questions, but who's asking and how is this further treated into the system? And I think this, I think the project now met a certain situation where the managers also were a little bit, not very happy with the situation about the interaction with science, and also the scientists were a little bit confused what is actually ongoing there. And so everybody seemed to now be very open and happy to more clearly interact and to more, a more informed interaction. And I think that's very good. And it found there was a ground already there because of the past experience. It's not happening from zero, because I think when we would have started 10, 12 years ago, I think people would perhaps answered in the management, this is our task, this is our goal, why you plug in your scientists and always knows things better. But now I think that it was so clear for everybody that there needs a better and structured interaction.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like it takes some time to build up that trust.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So any other questions for Corinna or for Anna? We've got about 5 or 10 minutes before we have to close out.
I have a question for Corinna. It was really shocking to me, or not shocking, but interesting to me to look at the overlap of use in the space and how small the EEZ is. And I'm wondering how much you feel like that competing use is a part of the conversation, and if that has been able to bring people together a little bit more, or the other way around.
Yeah, I think for the German waters, this competing use is definitely definitely a big problem. So we have the plan there to install 70 gigawatt, and what you have seen in the plan, you need large areas for that, of course. But what you have seen in the plan, that we don't have more space than for 60 gigawatt because of the different areas which are foreseen for specific use, for example, nature conservation, shipping lanes, and so on. And now there is a need to find space for 10 gigawatt there. And of course, the only free space, well, there are different proposals, but there are many proposals which won't work. But then, of course, you have the nature conservation areas here, and there are people thinking in using that. And of course, then nature conservation is not happy with that. And overall, also the space for fishing is reduced, not only because of that, but also because of political developments. So the competition for space is a real challenge. This is not the case everywhere in the world. I think in many countries have a much more marine area, so the competition is not so strong. But this is a big topic now currently in Germany, and different combination of uses are discussed, from combining fishing and offshore energy production, combining nature conservation and offshore energy production, combining aquaculture and offshore energy production, and also from the offshore production, energy production, there are also other ideas which we don't or didn't saw as scientists right away. I mean, they think in the industry, offshore industry. So there are many ideas underway, and I'm not so quite sure what actually will happen then. Many of our ideas seem to not work because of the one or the other reason. It's not so easy to allow fishing in offshore energy areas. You have a lot of cables there, and you cannot just have bottom contact fishing there. So I think there are challenges there, and this is a big problem, yes.
Any other questions for Corinna or Anna? I think I don't see any. But we want to, I guess we can wrap up a little bit early. We want to definitely very much thank Anna from Global Fishing Watch and Corinna from SustainMare project for their excellent presentations today, and all the participants. It was a great discussion, and keep your eye out for a invitation to the April webinar, which I think will be April 25th.